Hey, what's up? Good morning. Gorgeous day here in Erie, PA. Feels fantastic to be back home. I was in Florida all last week. Got to go down there with some of my childhood friends. We had an amazing time celebrating one of our good buddies who's getting married. Checked out some cool golf courses, Saddlebrook, which was fantastic. But I am really, really pleased about coming home to this. Showcase, cover story vibes. Miguel takes on music. Mill Creek Township real estate investors pursuing career in music. First off, I want to say thank you so much to the Erie Times, Bailey DeMuth, the writer who reached out to me in 2022. So this story has been in the making now for months, and we finally made it a point to get together and start the interview process. She did an incredible job really capturing the story. A big thank you also to my best friend Zach George, who is in the story. She went out of her way to go and talk to him, as well as him and I have been pursuing this music dream. He's heavily involved in the music industry as well, and as my best friend and somebody who I trust, we kind of give him that role as like the manager. We always kind of joke about that, but his Rolodex of connections is second to none, and he's just an incredible person. So shout out to him, his family, and everybody, and obviously the wife for holding down the fort while he's gone. But for many of you, maybe you didn't get a chance to read this. I think it's a good opportunity to go and subscribe to GoErie, so you could read it online. There's also a video there as well. But what I wanted to do with this review is I wanted to read it. You might hear some lawnmowers in the background, but whatever. So Miguel Rodriguez, 35, is shown in front of a property he plans to flip. That is true. We are in the works of that. Okay. Here we go, and shout out to all the other stories in this month's edition of Showcase. This is me at one of the properties, just kind of showing some wooded rot that's gonna have to go bye-bye. And that's me in the studio right there, performing Nuestra Tierra, which just dropped April 25th, last month. That's available on all streaming platforms, so go ahead and go listen to your boy. But I'm gonna read it for you, and I'm gonna kind of just break it down piece by piece. A little bit longer of a video, so if you're going to be hanging with me, I appreciate ya. I hope you're having a great day. Okay, so motivational speaker, personal trainer, father, entrepreneur, husband, Miguel Rodriguez, that's me. Those are many hats that Miguel Rodriguez has and still wears. Now, the Mill Creek Township resident, perhaps best known as the owner of Need to Sell, Call Miguel, that's callmiguelnow.com, is looking to put on a new one that has been decades in the making. And I love how she wrote that, decades in the making. Like, I didn't just decide to pursue or want to do music now, like in my mid-30s. This has been going on for a very long time. And again, shout out to Bailey, the writer, who really put some context into this story. And here's a quote of, "I'm my most authentic self when I'm performing and doing music," Rodriguez said. "At family parties, anytime music would come on, I'd either be doing karaoke or dancing, and everybody would always encourage me to do it." So this was like at a very young age. As a little Mexican boy, like my parents and our family parties was always filled with like cumbia and like, just high beat Mexican music. And I was always dancing, doing the quebradita, which is like a specific type of dance. And, singing, it was just very natural for me to impersonate people. I've always been able to kind of impersonate people and like make my voice sound different ways. So that's kind of where this like passion really started at a very young age. I'm talking like sub 5 years old, like 3, 4, right when you're kind of just like becoming. Rodriguez is reigniting his passion for performing in music as artist Miguel Inspirado. Now, for those of you who don't know what inspirado means, it's inspired in Spanish. In the past 2 years, Rodriguez has been busy building his artistic portfolio, performing at venues like the House of Blues in Cleveland and internationally in Brazil and Mexico, and creating work he hopes has effect on others. I think the music industry in general is just very dark. So I'm trying to be a light in the darkness. Rodriguez said, I want people to see me as a very inspirational artist, and I want my music to be able to give people hope. That's the nuts and bolts right there of why I'm doing this. I say the music is a dark place. I mean, you listen to a lot of the music that is on the radio, whether it's hip hop or pop or whatever, or like performances that you see like on the Super Bowl. It tends to shed towards a darker place, whereas myself, I want to kind of be a light in that darkness, and there's nothing that can dim light. So that's kind of the mission here. So we're moving on to the second part of this. It's rediscovering his passion for music. Rodriguez, a first-generation American of Mexican descent, was born in Los Angeles. That's in 1988, and moved to Erie in 1993 when his parents transferred to Plastic in Mill Creek Township. Shout out to the Pre-Shack family. Rodriguez said the culture shock of moving across the country stifled his aspirations to pursue music. And this was real because I felt like nobody was really listening to the kind of music that we were listening to at like our family parties and stuff. So we're going to talk about how like this identity crisis or like this culture shock really kind of took me away from being that like really happy-go-lucky little kid. I went from being surrounded by all these little brown boys and girls to being the only brown boy in Mill Creek at that time in school. The embarrassment of not fitting in took the dream away from me. So from kindergarten through high school, I had this identity crisis. And I think many people can identify with that, can relate to that, where you try to be somebody that you're not because you're afraid of pursuing your dreams or really being your authentic self or starting that business. Whatever the case may be, it starts at a really, really young age. And I wish I would have had some mentors like growing up to kind of help feed that passion a little bit more. And one of them was, of course, my friends. And here's where we introduced the homie, my best friend, Zach George. Among friends and in small groups, Rodriguez made his passion for music known, said Zach George, his best friend and current manager. We went to middle school together and would walk miles and miles just to hang out with friends of ours. And Miguel was basically our radio growing up, George said. He would freestyle rap for hours on end. He was literally our entertainment. So again, it was starting to kind of come back in middle school. It's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to say like I love being the center of attention, but it's like I love making people laugh. I love performing. I just love performing. That's kind of the nuts and bolts there. George helped Rodriguez rediscover his love for creating music when Rodriguez was 25. So this was 10 years ago. So essentially from like when I was a little kid, the dream kind of went away. Middle school, we're walking around, we're having fun, we're getting into trouble, but like music, freestyling, entertaining, cracking jokes, stand-up comedy, like that was my thing. So when I turned 25, I had met future Mrs. Rodriguez, and things started to get real on the family side, and obviously like with that, being able to provide and create some sort of financial stability was a big deal and should be a big deal. So at 25 is when Zach and I essentially wrote my first album. It was called Praising, kind of like a hip-hop worship album that is still unreleased. What we didn't know at that time is how to purchase and create instrumentals and owning the rights to them exclusively. There's a lot of things that we didn't know, and actually 10 years ago it was a lot harder for independent artists to be able to distribute and release their music on their own. So I gained a lot of momentum because I was able to write songs. So as soon as Rodriguez started in gaining momentum writing songs, he put his endeavors on hold for family and his job as a personal trainer. So at that time, I was working at iRock Fitness with the boys. Shout out to the Probonic brothers. Anthony, obviously, being a huge part of my childhood and just us growing up and even into our professional careers. So I'm very grateful for my brothers down there. And as a personal trainer, so once I ended up getting out of the big box gym, I became a personal trainer and started my own in-home on-site business called Most High Fitness. Many of you probably remember that. And after 7 years, it says here, Rodriguez left the fitness industry, but combined together, I was in the fitness industry for 14 years. Rodriguez left the fitness industry and began motivational speaking at schools nationwide, where he used his songs to relay inspirational messages to children. So the reason I left the big box industry, over 7 years ago when I was 25, well, now 10, is I wanted to really, really start to figure out a way how can I do this passion? How can I do my music and still be able to, provide, but also really, really fulfill my dreams and the things that I want to be doing, rather than just kind of going to work every single day. I want meaning in my life. Motivational speaking was kind of one of those things. God rest his soul. Rick Schneider, no, not Rick Schneider. I had a mentor, like a spiritual mentor who really encouraged me. Rick Shanker, I apologize, that's his name, Shanker. God rest his soul, really was a voice for me, because he saw me do some speaking stuff, and he's like, you really have a gift for motivational speaking or public speaking, which is something I never did, but performing was my thing, so I was comfortable being on stages. That's what opened the door to then be able to use my songs, which were, talking about Jesus, talking about love, talking about protecting yourself from negativity. I knew it was a perfect way for me to use those songs and then write and craft and build a message that I could reach thousands of people with. And that's when I became a nationwide speaker, is when I teamed up with Brian Williams at Think Kindness. Shout out to you, brother. Thank you so much for everything. And that was incredible. So that's where we're at in the story. And I kind of felt, I'm continuing reading here, I kind of felt like I was on tour performing my music, but also teaching out of what I was saying through my lyrics to kids, Rodriguez said. So whatever I wrote, I was able to write it into a message. And then out of my song, there was a message that was able to inspire children. And this was honestly, I think, the most fulfilled I ever was, doing what I was doing, because I was speaking, I was doing my music, so that was there. I was still doing the personal training a little bit, even though that was really, I only had maybe 2 or 3 clients. But just like everybody else, the COVID-19 pandemic delayed Rodriguez's passion further, but now he's determined to pick up where he left off. I just have confidence in what I'm going to do, because you don't understand the hours I put into perfecting and writing these songs, recording, and deleting it over and over again, trying to get it right. Creating music with meaningful messages. Rodriguez has released 10 singles since launching Miguel Inspirato LLC in 2021. So that's kind of been our goal, is to build a portfolio of music, right? Where people can go and listen to. If you see me perform a song and you like it, maybe that'll lead you to one of my streaming platforms, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Music. You can listen to that song, but then if you just kind of continue playing, you'll continue to listen to my songs. And that's essentially the catalog. We're building the catalog right now, and then we're focused on releasing singles as opposed to albums before we get that big deal. But we'll get there in a minute. His music can be streamed on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Like many artists, Rodriguez's music is inspired by his own life experiences. Some tracks, like Money Consciousness, were inspired by the books Think and Grow Rich and The Richest Man in Babylon. Again, so still kind of taking that motivational speaker, that influential person that I am, and now using music ultimately as the way to teach. I want to be able to teach my listeners that what this book teaches is you need the persistence to continue in life, and it doesn't have to relate to just money. Rodriguez said, as a motivational speaker, I've kind of translated that into being an artist, because I know the power of words have a serious effect, so I don't take it lightly. That's exactly. There's power in the words. When God wanted light, he said, let there be light. So there's power in the words, and that's why I take it serious for what I take it serious. So Money Consciousness, yes, it is a song about financial competency, but it essentially relates to anything in life. Think and Grow Rich talks about being persistent. And, we ultimately have to be persistent and never, ever, ever give up. Okay, so not only does Rodriguez want his music to inspire others, but he also wants to tell stories. Every good writer is a storyteller, right? So his latest singer, Nuestra Tierra, which translates to Our Land, details the Mexican-American War of 1846. And I specifically released that on the 177th year anniversary, which was on April 25th. Rodriguez raps the first half in Spanish and the latter in English, which is kind of like my niche. There's a lot of hip hop now that is combining both Spanish and English, so I feel like I'm heading in the right direction there with the trend. It's an anthem song for immigrants, Native Americans, Mexican Americans, and even U.S. citizens, Rodriguez said. Back to George, my best friend. George said the lessons, positive message, and tone of Rodriguez music is what set him apart. A lot of times rap is talking about drug dealing or extramarital affairs, and I can't relate to that, George said. Miguel doesn't swear in his music, which I think stands out quite a bit, but it doesn't feel corny. It's beautiful that kids or anybody can listen to his music and not feel uncomfortable about what the message is saying. Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. Like my music, we could blast it at my wife's recital, and a lot of other artists may not have that capability to be able to perform a song there, but then like at a big stadium or in somebody's vehicle, wherever you listen to music. Okay, so here we go. We're moving on. Hitting the road for the spring tour. I've actually been performing, once or a couple times a month here pretty recently. We have some gigs coming up here, which I'll share at the end of this video. But over the past year, Rodriguez has worked to make his mark on the local music scene. He's performed at the Performing Arts Collective Alliance, that's PACA, last year's Celebrate Erie, and dozens of open mics. He's also performed to audiences in Cleveland, Columbus, Ohio, and in Pittsburgh. I've performed in front of 5,000 people. I've performed in front of 5,000 people or 10 people, but if you love the craft and you do it for the right reasons, it's worth it. Near the end of May and beginning of June, Rodriguez has several dates booked for his first official tour. Full details can be found on Inspirado's Facebook page, but upcoming performances will be held in Erie, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Kent, and Cleveland, Ohio, and possibly other locations. So if you're looking for somebody to come perform, you gotta give your boy a shout out. I'm looking at these opportunities for me to build my network and establish a presence so I know I can go to multiple markets and have a voice. I'm also just being realistic with myself. I don't have 20 gigs booked right now, so I need to start small. It's just putting myself out there and being my biggest fan and supporter. Rodriguez said the tour and his push to focus on music wouldn't be possible without the balance he's created with his other passion, real estate. Keeping up with the real estate portfolio. My passion, the music, isn't obviously paying me what I hope it does yet, but because of real estate, it allows for me to invest in it. It provides the space and time for me to travel and perform. When he first started in real estate, Rodriguez was primarily known for flipping Erie area homes for sale. Now he's diversified his approach and has expanded his reach beyond Erie, Mill Creek Township, Harbor Creek, and even into Meadville. We're in a different financial situation now than we were a few years ago, where we just needed to sell. But now we're at the point where if we want to flip it, fix it up, or rent it out, we have the options to do that. And I think this is an important thing to note here. When it comes to real estate investing, there's many exit strategies as an investor. And primarily as a fix and flipper, we would buy a property, fix it up, and then sell it at a retail price. We still do that. However, there's other ways now where maybe we could sell a property even faster, maybe to another investor who's just getting started, where we can help them out. Or we fix it up and then we rent it out, right? And I think that's really crucial, because especially our economic climate right now, with interest rates being super high, a lot of buyers have actually been pushed out of the buyer pool and into the renters pool. So the demand for good rentals has actually only increased. Therefore, I think it's good to just know your exit strategy, but ultimately have options And that's what I'm doing now as a real estate investor. You know, we have things in the pipeline right now where we can choose to fix it up. We can choose to fix it up and rent it out, or we can sell it as is. It ultimately depends. You know, the HGTV super sexy, like fix and flip things are still out there. However, you do need to be careful because of material costs, supply and demand, contractors being, you know, overly overbooked. And, you know, you have deadlines, and, you know, if you're working with private lenders and stuff, you know, money right now, even with, you know, traditional bank, is very, very expensive. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up really quick, because there's definitely, you know, you have to be savvy as a real estate investor. And I think this is me kind of pivoting and just being very, very wise with the decisions that we make on our investments. Rodriguez said he's taken on bigger renovations, investing more into homes and turning them into rental properties. Our last several purchases have been rental properties. It's not a matter of not wanting to flip these houses. And then kind of just reiterating what I just said here. It's not a matter of not wanting to flip these houses. It's understanding what's going on in the economy and helping more people having houses as opposed to buying houses. Rodriguez said it's just evolving into different things, and we'll continue to flip houses if it makes sense. Okay, and then this is our last little section here. I hope you're enjoying this. Working to have it all does come with some challenges. So working against the odds is kind of the title of this little column here that finishes up. Rodriguez makes an effort to spread his time equally among his music, real estate business, and family, but they often merge. When I fully jumped back into music, it was really hard on my family because I'd be gone for weeks at a time. And if I did bring my family with me, it'd be tough to focus. So it's kind of like juggling. You know, if you book a studio to record music in Miami, where you fly out there and you're only there for maybe like a day or two, it doesn't really make sense, because like a lot of the magic really happens after hours of being in there. And then in conjunction with that, you know, spending time with the family and, hey, let's go have a beach day, or whatever the case is, or going out to dinner. I feel like I need to be able to kind of separate the things, and it's been a huge learning curve for both my wife and I, you know, because we have two beautiful kids and we're both entrepreneurs. But as an entrepreneur who's continually adapting to change, Rodriguez said having a good support system is what keeps him going. It's challenging, but it forces you to constantly move forward. Remember what that book taught: persistence. We might lose our patience every once in a while, but that's life. Communication is key. Being organized, setting boundaries, and just understanding that challenges are going to come. That's the one thing I've always realized that I just accept, is that challenges are going to happen, and it's a matter of like, hey, what do I need to do right now, or what decisions do I need to make sure that this benefits not only me but my entire family, you know, my friends, my team. You know, so that requires a lot of what we're going to be going into is, you know, personal development. George said he's always admired Rodriguez's ability to balance his differing career aspirations. To him, it's because Rodriguez keeps a rigorous self-care routine. He doesn't drink at all. Over 2 years without indulging in any sort of alcohol. And primarily, I decided to stop drinking alcohol because I wanted to focus on music. And I knew that if I was going to be traveling and spending time away from my family, I wanted to make sure that my judgment was not impaired and that essentially I was always on point. He doesn't drink at all, which is a big part of it, because you notice a lot of musicians' careers go downhill because of drinking and drugs, George said. Very true. He's also very committed to his fitness routine. He wakes up early in the morning, meditates, prays, reads, and gets himself ready for the day, knowing that there's going to be a million things going on, and that's true. You know, and of course there's seasons and times of change where maybe some seasons are busier and more productive than others. But I think the one thing is, if you're consistent in your routine, and even if you just, you know, and even if you kind of get off that routine, as long as you've kind of built that like muscle memory of always going to your chair, reading, meditating, spending time in silence, you know, that Psalm 46:10, silent be still and know that I am God. One of my favorite scriptures is something that I like to apply into my life, and it ultimately does help me, because when you're around chaos, it's really, really hard to hear that inner voice, you know, God's voice of ultimately like what the best is for you. And I know that I could be doing better at that, and I'm sure you could be doing better at that, so we could all be doing better, but at the same time, don't be so hard on yourself. let's see here. It can be a lot to switch your hats, but I think what he's trying to do is integrate all those things into one person. And I think that's very doable. We always joke around because my friend Zach, he's he's single and lives in Miami. He's got a huge family and stuff, but he's not married and doesn't have kids. So it's like, it's always funny, like him trying to give me like advice on like, parenting and stuff. But he is an uncle himself. You got to give him that credit. But, yeah, it is doable, and it does require, again, that persistence to be able to do this. Proving himself as a serious artist has been a long process. Yes, it is. But Rodriguez is determined to show that his music deserves a place in the industry. That's a big fact. I think if my music can heal somebody from whatever they're going through, that's what it's about. And if somebody says you can't do something, it makes me want to do it that much more. So it's also proving to the haters that you can still chase and fulfill your dreams. And I think I'm doing that. It's just a wonderful quote to end on by your boy, yours truly. A big thank you to GoErie. I love this story. Support your local artists, support your real estate investors, your entrepreneurs, people who are taking on those inner voices, those hunches that keep you moving. So I'm feeling, no pun intended, pretty inspired right now, and excited for what's to come. I got a couple gigs coming up. We have a gig coming up this Friday, I believe, in Kent. We were going to be having one in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm just not sure if that's legit or not. Because of this article, I was able to connect with I was able to tap in with some of the local hip hop artists here in Erie. So I'm excited to be performing at the King's Rook Club here. I think it's either June 2nd or 3rd. Look out for new things coming up, both on the real estate and the music side and the family side. This is who I am. Again, this is the most authentic and real I can be is when I'm being creative and doing music. Yeah, so if I have a final word for you, if you're still here listening and watching, thank you so much for your time. I know this is a longer video, but I really wanted to give this the effort because there's a lot of hours and a lot of time and a lot of things that went into making this story. I'm not just talking about myself, I'm talking about the people over at GoErie, my family, my friends, my wife, my kids, my best friend George, Zach, who you heard from. This has been a long journey, and the beautiful thing about it is that we're in the process, we're in the journey. The destination hasn't been met yet. So I want to just encourage you to continue to keep being persistent, right? Keep pursuing whatever it is in your life. If you're a mother, if you're a husband trying to figure it out, if you just got laid off your job, you need to move and adapt. Kind of like what I was saying, always expect some sort of change, because change is always going to happen. It's inevitable, and it's how you respond to it, not how you react. You have to respond. One of my favorite quotes is that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. So go out and make that life that you want to happen. And with that being said, check out all the music on all streaming platforms. Miguel Inspirato. Thank you so much. I love you guys. It's a gorgeous day, so I'm gonna go spend it with my family. All right, take care.